This webinar is really designed to talk mostly about what's new in the Clarity product. So hopefully people on the call understand what the product is, and we don't have to do too much kind of upfront setting the stage that way. So we'll talk mostly about what's new, and then there'll be a Q&A section at the end. We also talk a little bit about the release history for Clarity, as well as within what's coming, or what has come, I should say. We released the Clarity 2025 product last week. And so where all those different enhancements that we did came from. So historically, going back as far as Clarity 2011, I believe, is when we started, and we've traditionally done a 2 releases per year kind of release cadence. One release in the spring that is primarily dominated by the need to support new versions of Autodesk software. So it shows this spring we're supporting Autodesk 2025 products. And then in the fall, we do another feature release. So as I said, the spring release is usually dominated by supporting the new version, and that is even more so for this particular release. We do still support, along with Revit 2025, we go back 5 versions, or we include 5 versions in our support. So that's Revit and Revit Server 2021 through 2025. And because there's always people who are sort of reluctant, they've got a project in construction in, a 6-year-old kind of design. We also offer a 6th version, a 6th year of support with the Revit products. So we do have the limited support, and that means you can still run Revit 2020 tasks if you connect an older task server to your 2025 Clarity host server. So that machine can run the 2020 through 2024 sort of tasks, and then other newer machines, other task servers that you upgrade, they can run 2021 through 2025. So we're hopeful that by supporting 6 versions, that's enough for people. I know that there will always be exceptions to that, but our hope is that you can move up to the newest version of Clarity and get support for the new features. It is possible to sort of mix and match as well. So if you have 3 task servers, let's say, you could upgrade 2 of them and have support for 2021 through 2025 on those 2 upgraded task servers, and keep one of the machines set to still be running your 2020 tasks. So yeah, so that's one aspect, and certainly a big aspect. The biggest part about it is that Autodesk upgraded Revit to work with sort of the next generation of Microsoft.NET technology, and that's been a long time coming. But now that they've finally done it, we're feeling the downstream effects of it, because it's fundamentally incompatible with all sorts of things, or all sorts of things need to be upgraded. So it was a massive undertaking on our part. So if you do have your own add-ins or Dynamo nodes or anything else like that, don't underestimate the amount of effort required to upgrade and support Revit 2025. We certainly underestimated it. It wound up being quite a lot. So moving into what is in the Clarity 2025 product beyond the simple Revit support, a lot of what we did in the Clarity 2025 product came from 2 sort of sources. We do both quarterly health check-ins with people who are on a particular kind of subscription plan with us for Clarity. It's called Clarity Plus subscription, and it involves coming in and doing a quarterly health check and looking at what's going right and what's going wrong, and how can we make it more predictable, less something that you have to worry about, just more something that you can just set it and forget it. That's really our goal with this. And then for some customers, we do a deeper dive. We we get their database and we slice and dice it and really dig in on exactly what kinds of things are causing most of the issues. And so in doing this for a lot of customers over the past year, it really led us to focusing on what can we do to make Clarity more stable, more predictable, address some of the things that are more difficult to do, or if we had made sort of a modify a config file kind of option that is present to help you do things better, but it's not really very discoverable. We've enhanced Clarity to make it easier to get good Clarity results out of it. So that really spoke to a lot of the different enhancements in this particular area that we'll talk about that are in the 2025 release. So the first issue I'll talk about is Revit error resolution. So when Clarity opens up a model and there is, let's say, a dimension reference that is no longer resolvable, that is something that traditionally, when it happens to a user, the user chooses whether to continue on or not. In the case of Clarity, the resolution to that error is to delete the dimension. And from a batch perspective, without having a human involved, we don't really know if that's an important dimension or not. And so we've been reluctant to ever make it just something that you could just blast through and Clarity is going to delete that dimension. We have to be conservative about such things. But in 2024.1, as an example, we did add a configuration option where you could go in and give us permission to sort of drive ahead if we encounter specific kinds of Revit errors. And some people adopted that, but it is fairly painful to set it up and that kind of thing. And so in 2025, this is now moved into the Clarity task tray user interface. You can go in and say, these kinds of errors, should you encounter them, go ahead and push forward, do whatever needs to be done to keep the tasks going instead of bailing out of even loading the model. So these are all things that can be set up in the UI of the task server. And also, if you want to manage them centrally, Clarity does have the concept of a global task settings. You can kind of push your task server settings to your host and then have your other task servers just subscribe to those changes. And this is also supported in that kind of setup. Similarly, with other dialog boxes, I think our most common thing that we've seen in the past few years for this has been the schema conflict kind of issues. It happens, especially if you're sharing your model with other partners, but the dialog that pops up is relatively threatening looking in that it says you could lose your data if you continue with this. But you may care about that data, you might not, but ultimately this is now something where we had to say no, cancel the loading process as our default behavior, but this is now something where you can configure for this or just about any other pop-up dialog that's inside the Revit context. You can configure alternate answers to what you would like to answer when Revit pops that dialog box up. So this is something, again, works similarly. It's now in the task tray, and you can set it up and you can make it so that Clarity will not get either hung up by these things or it won't cancel a task if it can't, if it encounters this kind of thing. Another thing that we saw that seemed to cause problems had to do with the targeting of tasks. If a model got renamed or if you had a lot of models on the project and it was just hard to keep up with, people were sort of not always good at keeping up and going into every single task when a model got renamed or something like that to specify exactly which models are going to get processed. And so it was a customer suggestions kind of late in the development cycle that if we could just set up a common task target, like here's the MEP models, or here's the architecture models that we care about, or whatever your discipline is, or however you choose what models you wanted to target, that we could make that a common set of targets and use that across the entire project. So ultimately, once you set those up, these common task targets are then available inside of the task targeting, and you can just say, this task runs against my MEP models, and that's configured in one place. So if you have 5 tasks that all point to them, you can point all 5 tasks to that one definition. Other things that we've seen happen a lot is running low on your task servers on disk space, as well as low on RAM, particularly if you're trying to run multiple sessions of Revit within one task server. These are things that can effectively derail Clarity if they get into that situation. And so we've added this to the task server health alerts, which you can receive via email, as well as sort of track when did these health alerts happen within the task coordinator view inside of Clarity. So our hope is that this also would prevent problems from occurring, or from you not necessarily understanding why things weren't running as nicely as they should be, because this kind of thing will interfere with your ability to get good task results. Let's see, another thing which is it's a little bit more obscure, but it is fairly important because it is an upgrade process that we are putting everybody through, every Clarity host through. It really only is going to apply probably to the projects in BIM 360 or Autodesk Construction Cloud, not the ones that you host yourself, but the ones that are hosted by one of your partners. And it specifically refers to if you have been given access to a project, but you're not given access to the top level folder. For example, if you're a mechanical company and you've been given access to a BIM 360 project that lives someplace else, and the folder that you see when you sign in is not /project files, it's the mechanical folder. Historically, Clarity has just said, okay, well, all of the paths for those files that we see in there are all just /mechanical /whatever. But we would get into trouble sometimes, especially if later you were changed so that you could see project files, or maybe you've got multiple OAuths and one of them can see project files and one of them can't. There were a lot of different scenarios that we ran into where it was just inconsistencies. And now the Autodesk API does allow for us to find out what the full path is, even if you're not allowed to visit those upper level paths. And so now that we can do that, our goal is to make it so that that we always report the full path, even if you don't have access to that top level path. So in order to do this, there is, during the Clarity install and upgrade process, an option to run what we call the Clarity Path Migration tool. And this will go through all of your Clarity projects and look for this kind of situation, something where you can only see the /mechanical or /arch folder, and we want to make it so that it's consistent with as being /project files /arch or /project files mechanical. And ultimately, this affects things like your working folder for the project. It affects your file filters for the project if you use those, and your task targeting if you target specific files by their path. So all these things are affected, and so we recommend to look at that option. It is a yes or no, like you don't have to run it, but I think without running it, Clarity might start reporting things as having this new longer path in this case. So it really is something that you do have to migrate. You don't have to do it immediately when you do the migration, but you should do it soon after, and it's possible to run it anytime that you want, as well as run it just in a test mode where it will tell you what it's going to do without doing it. Another topic that also came up is that we have over the past few years developed a lot of file synchronization kind of capabilities, but in the early days of this, we had a separate purpose-built task for each different system. Like we had a BIM 360 download, and we had a ProjectWise download, we had a SharePoint download, all of these different kinds of things, and you could do different sort of tricks to say, I want to download from here, put it onto a network folder, but then also turn around and upload it to BIM 360. And those tricks were functional, but they weren't really good. And so we spent the last few years developing our unified sync task to be able to do those kinds of things and just do it as best as possible. Best configuration kind of capabilities, all of the new features for file synchronization, they're all going into unified sync. And so we would like to see people using unified sync instead of the old, I think it's 8 or 9 different file synchronization tasks that unified sync really kind of replaces. And so we do now have a tool that you can run that will migrate your various old style file synchronization tasks into the equivalent unified sync task. So we're hopeful that people will do that and start moving to the nicer tasks. Let's see. The other thing that we do is we spend a lot of time looking through anonymous analytics that get sent in by your server just to see what people are using, what kinds of tasks. And we've added in 2025 some more detailed data about the kinds of task errors that you're seeing. So nothing identifiable or anything like that, just the kind of the categorization of the errors that you're seeing. And we're going to use that on an ongoing basis to better monitor what's going on out there in the world right now, and basically just be more proactive about jumping on anything that we see is going on, whether it's been reported through support or not. Our goal is to make Clarity, again, more stable, more predictable, and we're going to use the analytics from your servers to see that that's happening. Let's see, some other things in other areas of Clarity. Clarity has a space programming module, and the general pitch for Clarity space programming. This is an additional cost module, so it's not something that everybody has, but it's really designed primarily for architects that do early stage space programming and planning, trying to make a consistent process that flows all the way from the early stages of planning to doing schematic and conceptual design inside of Revit, all the way to later stages of detailed design inside of Revit, FF&E layout, as much as you want to do, but generally focused around how do we represent the requirements for what spaces need to be delivered, and are we meeting what we said we were going to meet in terms of the spaces that are there and what they are and what's in them, if you'd like to take it that far. So space programming is a whole nother module that plugs into Clarity to give you these features. And within the 2025 version, we've added more options for for these different pieces. I think I might have a slide on each. So yeah, so on the one-to-one room requirements, we've historically run into different kinds of firms or practices within a firm about how room type oriented were they, or room requirement oriented. You know, if you said, hey, we need 5 exam rooms, and they're all going to be identical. That's sort of one approach to this. Whereas some people's programs are just like, here's the exact rooms that we want, right down to the room number of how we want them to be. And so we do now support that kind of one-to-one, you know, one requirement to one room kind of relationship, which does a bunch of nice things for us, including making updates much more simple, as well as bidirectional kind of capabilities, so that you can make it so that you know, if something changes within the actual room and you'd like that to flow back to the program, that's now possible when it's one-to-one. If it's a one-to-many kind of situation, it's more difficult to have individual room parameters flow backwards into the program. So much more flexible for people who work that way. Secondly, calculated fields. So we've always had our own ability to have you know, custom parameters, much like in Revit, and these custom parameters can be tracked and can be synchronized with Revit, pushed into Revit, used in reporting, all sorts of things. But we can now have the ability to have these custom parameters be calculated from other parameters, either built in or custom. So there's lots of different things that you can do now to create these custom parameters and have them update dynamically. Another area that we moved into within the 2025 product is Aconex integration. So Oracle Aconex is a large, I don't know if I would guess I would call it a construction management kind of platform. And this is you know, something that we now offer as an additional you know, 2 ways really, both as a post-task action where you can deliver files that come out of tasks into an Aconex document repository or document register, as well as unified sync. You can set up unified sync between, say, Autodesk Construction Cloud project and an Aconex project. And you know, it's a little bit interesting as a system because there's no folder structure to it. Everything is just metadata. So we do have the ability to have mandatory sort of metadata mapping between, say, your Revit data and Aconex or BIM 360 data and Aconex. So you effectively have to fill in the required metadata either by having it dynamically mapped from something that we do, or by filling it in within the post-task action or the unified sync. We also have an improved metadata mapping situation to address situations where the name of your metadata in Construction Cloud does not match the name of the metadata in Aconex. If the attribute names are different, you need to do that kind of mapping process to say this is equal to that. This is something that just due to the amount of cost that we have in dealing with Oracle and Aconex and that kind of thing, there will be an additional charge for this Aconex integration, much like our Bentley ProjectWise kind of integration, similar concept. Other small enhancements that I'll mention as well in 2025, keeping track of tasks and when they were created, who they were created by, when they were last modified and who they were last modified by. Super useful for a variety of different things, but you'll see that in the 2025 product as well as in the various grids and that kind of thing. I mentioned metadata mapping UI. So historically, we've just offered this sort of metadata mapping or custom attribute kind of mapping things by filling in an XML file on through our user interface, but it was still, they're now using it into the user interface. How do you map from A to B? And so there's now, on a project by project basis, there's now the ability to edit that data within the project and set up what the mapping is within the user interface. The advanced metadata mapping, we've also started to run into more complex kind of cases where if you have drop downs in your custom attributes or that kind of thing, it might, in your going from project to project, it might have been called one thing in project A, but it's that maps a value to a different value in project B. And so there's a few different sort of advanced options for changing up the values that are coming across to reflect what the values need to be in the new system. Revit 2025 introduces sheet collections, which is, it's a little bit like the sheet set concept. It is really one to a sheet, but you can use it to organize your sheets in different ways. And we do have what I would call preliminary support for that, in that we can see what the sheet collections are, and you can use them to specify what you want to print or export or that kind of thing. Let's see, additional metrics. We've added something requested by customers on the fabrication side. And then on the BIM 360 and ACC publishing side of things, I think with the options for, I think this is driven by the with links or without links kind of option. If you've published one way, it's reluctant, I think, to, it says I don't need to publish again, but if you need to publish with the other option or something like that, or force it to publish, there is a mechanism now to do that via Clarity. I also want to mention just in passing, IMAGINiT Clarity Cloud. So, what I've been talking about so far is the IMAGINiT Clarity on-premise product. We do also have our cloud-based product. It's still much younger, much less mature than our on-premise product, but it is growing and it is getting there. So I just wanted to mention that in this past year, we did put out more updates for Clarity Cloud. It does tend to lag a little bit the on-premise side, so like its 2025 Revit support will probably be in the next few weeks. But beyond that, the way that tasks run inside of here, it works just with projects that are in BIM 360 and ACC, but you can set things up. You don't need your own host server. This is all just cloud-based. And the work that needs to be done can be done one of two ways. It can either be sent off to Autodesk to be executed in their cloud, or if you want to bring a traditional Clarity task server and have that installed on-premise, you can connect those on-premise task servers to your Clarity Cloud account and be able to send jobs from Clarity Cloud down to machines that you have on-premise. So, the benefit is that there's sort of a fixed cost associated with these because you are providing the license. Work that's done over here in the Autodesk Cloud is going to burn, task tokens and money, therefore. So Clarity Cloud, if you're interested in it, please reach out to your local IMAGINiT rep. We'd be happy to talk more about it to you. We really designed it as something that was targeted at sort of small to medium-sized companies, maybe that couldn't afford setting up a full Clarity implementation on the on-premise side of things, or people who had just a project that wanted to dip their toe in the water of Clarity. This is kind of a less expensive entry point to go and do that. But more and more, we've seen existing Clarity customers who are thinking about migrating their on-premise Clarity to at least this hybrid model today for a variety of reasons. So just wanted to put that out there and make sure that people knew that Clarity Cloud was out there. So with all that, I guess I've been monologuing. I hope my microphone was on the whole time. And let's see if somebody had any kind of questions that we can answer as part of this. And I'm happy to jump in and show things if that's relevant to it.
Cool.
Joe, are you there to coordinate?
I am. A few things that have come through, and we don't have too many questions right now, so if anybody's got them, please feel free to start adding anything you've got into that chat panel. But I guess first off, if we're looking at it, there's one person who is saying that the upgrade to 2024.1 was a bit complicated. Will the upgrade to 2025 be less complicated?
I'm not sure why they're 20. I don't know if they came from 2024.0 to 2024.1. I would not have guessed that that was that complicated. I would say that, in all honesty, I would expect this one to be slightly more complicated than 2024.1, and I say that because of the, not that there's anything particularly complicated in the core parts of Clarity, but that one thing that I mentioned, the Clarity path migration piece, that is just something that does have a little bit of added complexity that I think is still in the until I've upgraded the first 50 customers, I'll still be slightly nervous about. So the process is almost identical to what you went through with 2024.1. You're just going to run the setup.exe and let it run. There's just one extra step at the end where it does this Clarity path migration piece. So I would say it might be incrementally more. That said, for most customers, it's really a non-issue. I mean, I did a ton of migrations so far, and generally, I mean, 10, 15 minutes for the host server, maybe a little less for the task server. So it shouldn't be all that much, but your mileage may vary. You have actual production data, I understand. So
okay. Next one down in the list is actually more of a feature request, but the option for things like health alerts to go out to designated people through a text message instead of just email would be nice as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that that we could look at. I know that. Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting thing. I will make note of that, and we'll look at it. And Joe, send me separately if you can see who it was that requested that, just in case we want to follow up with questions.
You got it. Unified sync. Question on the timing for that. Is the unified sync able to start running as soon as it notices a change to a file, or is it something that is set to happen on a scheduled basis?
So it can do either one. And actually, I will say that, let's see if you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So all tasks within Clarity now have the ability to be triggered not just on demand, not just on a schedule, but we have this web trigger, and the web trigger, you can use BIM 360 ACC, and we will watch over a folder or folder structure. Come on.
Internet hamsters are getting tired.
Yeah, there we are. And we'll watch over a folder structure, and we can be triggered anytime that a file is created or added. There's even subsequent, of course, there's even subsequent filters for, for let me wait until it's not just there, but it's got a particular review setting or a particular custom attribute value before I trigger. So you can do this with all Clarity tasks, including Unified Sync. And the extra benefit to Unified Sync is if you are looking to do something like from BIM 360 and into into something else, like into Procore or something like that. In the case where Unified Sync is launched by a web trigger, what it's going to run on is not necessarily the full thing, the full folder structure that you pick, it will run on just the item that was passed by the web trigger. So, gosh.
And as it relates to Revit files, the unified sync is still working on the published version of the Revit file. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. Yes. So we are talking about published versions here. Running on live models, we do have this immediate on sync to central, which does include either a change to the published file or a sync to central that we've seen. This is not quite as instant. This is, we get sort of notified within, a certain number of minutes when we see a sync to central kind of thing happen. Whereas the web trigger you'll see is like, within seconds.
Cool. Okay. A pair of questions that are related to cloud. And I'll throw them both together, but they're related enough that you can just answer them both at once. Basically, one is, can you host the Clarity and task servers in our IMAGINiT Clarity cloud so that there is nothing on-premise? And then related to that, what would the benefits be of somebody who already has the on-premise version of migrating to Clarity Cloud?
Well, okay, so in terms of can IMAGINiT host the task servers for you, we've been interested in doing that actually for 14 years. However, Autodesk's license agreement and Autodesk, when we asked them about it, specifically has forbidden us to do that. The only way that this works is when these are licenses that you buy for for the task servers this way. Their suggestion is if you want things performed fully in the cloud, then use the design automation for Revit servers, the virtual task servers seen here. The challenge with that, honestly, right now is that these are basically 32 gigabyte workstations. So I'm guessing that most of you have, depending on the size of projects that you do, most people have moved beyond 32 gigabyte workstations. So you might be running into a situation where these are not really the kinds of machines that you would want to have doing your task work. Also, no graphics cards, so printing and and some kinds of exporting a little bit on the slow side. So there's a variety of issues with running these sort of pure sandboxed Autodesk machines in the cloud. But this is the sort of no task server, nothing on premise kind of option is the Clarity Cloud software as a service with the the Autodesk backed cloud processing of models. That's your best pure cloud model. It just may be slightly restricting. In terms of the sort of mixed mode, what does it offer you? I think we've seen it done in a few different places. I mean, in some cases, customers are just looking to get out of having to manage their own Clarity host server, and the SQL server that goes with it and that kind of stuff. Their IT department is, not wild to be, managing servers. They'd like to be on the cloud. In this model with the hybrid option, someone still has to manage the task servers on premise, but those are just like your normal engineer workstation kind of things. This is, of course, limited to just automation and model health. So if you're doing business intelligence or space programming or room and equipment data sheets, we don't have all of those features. There's other restrictions, but it's something that existing Clarity customers are at least giving a look at and starting to plot maybe when they might migrate up to here. Clarity on-prem, just to be clear, we see it going forward forever. Some people are never going to switch away, particularly people who are doing government work that might not be possible to put in the cloud. Let's see, but to answer or give one other scenario where we recently had an on-premise customer sign up for Clarity Cloud and basically just doing double duty with their task servers, so that you can take these task servers and point them to both your on-premise machine and your cloud tenant. They were doing that because they had a joint venture going on, and they wanted the joint venture partners to be able to set up tasks or manage tasks or look at tasks that were running and that kind of thing. Yeah, they had gone through a process to let the partners into their regular Clarity host server via remote desktops or VPN or something like that. But basically the partners, kind of hated that. I think it was Asia Pacific, and just the performance of it was terrible. But now they basically just stood up one project and are making that something that they can share with partners in the Clarity Cloud SaaS environment, but still have their own machines that are set to do the work for that project on premise. So that's another at least scenario where it might be interesting to people.
And for those people that are going to be testing out or doing a migration, if they have it on premise and they're going to the cloud, it's really, we just recreate the project in the cloud. We don't currently have any sort of a migration tool in place, correct?
We don't right at this moment, but I would expect that's something by the fall. I would expect that we have a migration tool in place, because we're being asked about it more and more. It just doesn't exist right at this moment.
Cool. Moving on from there, can you export a Revit model and its data from BIM 360 to a local network location? I think the only question in my mind on that one is, and its data. So the person that had put that question in there, if you can maybe give some extra information on that, because probably the answer is yes.
Yeah, certainly it's model. So we've got tasks like eTransmit that will take a BIM 360 model and write it out to a local location, like the RVT file itself. When we talk about its data, there's a few different options. We've got a database export tool, so it'll take a Revit model and in the on-premise version, I shouldn't be pointing to Clarity Cloud as I talk about it, because that's only an on-premise feature. But Clarity on-premise will spin up a SQL database for every project, and our tool will fully export the Revit models data, 250 tables worth of data into the SQL database. For all the models in your project, you can have one consolidated place to look at from a SQL perspective. If SQL was not what you were interested in, we do also have export of schedules. So we can export schedule data out as well.
Okay. Is there any way for us to track Revit build numbers of BIM 360 ACC models?
Oh, gosh, that's interesting. I'm not sure if that's something that we offer today. We have offered it in the past because of issues with Revit server, and as well as file-based models. So we offer it with file-based projects, network folder sort of projects. We offer it with Revit server projects. We don't offer it with ACC projects today. That said, I guess I don't know if you're more worried about your partners or you're more worried about your own people. If you're worried about your own people, we do have a Clarity client add-in for Revit that will track that specifically. So it'll keep track of exactly when anybody connects up to Clarity. It'll report in what Revit version and build that they're using, and that'll be tieable together with the Revit sessions and models and projects and that kind of thing. So yeah, it would require you to deploy an add-in to users' machines. So.
Gotcha. A couple of questions related to web triggers. So I'll both of them and let you get them both at the same time. Is there improvement in time to run exports faster if you run them with a web trigger? So I don't think the time it takes to perform the task isn't any faster, but it might pick up sooner. And then the related one is, does the web trigger only run when Clarity does a rescan, or what? How do you control that frequency of scanning and web triggering?
Gotcha. So web triggering is basically instant. We've read, when you set up a web trigger, it sets up a direct notification from BIM 360 to your machine. Happens within seconds. When it's as opposed to the immediate on sync with Central, that's something that that basically we also have a similar kind of setup, but we're sort of kind of capturing that data on the IMAGINiT website, and then machines are basically periodically checking, like, hey, should I rescan this project? Have we gotten a notification that anything's changed? So so the immediate on sync to Central kind of stuff, that is sort of subject to, it's not exactly a rescan, in that I think that we might be checking once every 15 minutes, but yeah, the web trigger is very much instant. And to the other question about would it run faster, Unified Sync, I would say specifically, would run faster, in that it's only going to synchronize the exact things that changed. It's only going to consider the exact things that changed, whereas regular Unified Sync is going to sort of look at everything on side A and look at everything on side B and try to figure out, okay, what needs to change between these two systems. The Unified Sync, when triggered by a web trigger, would run just on that one thing, so it should be faster.
And a confirmation on this one. Do we need separate Autodesk accounts for each and every task server?
So I will say that is the general guidance that I have been told by Autodesk. That said, it feels like, if you're a big enough company that you have an enterprise business agreement with them, it feels like I have seen that not be the case for those kind of big companies. I'm not positive on that. I can't point to anything. There's nothing written down that I've ever seen, but that's just been my experience, that for the sort of smaller you are, the more likely that is the the official stated guidance, is that think of a Clarity task server as an intern who's just been hired to do nothing but grind out Clarity tasks by hand, in the same way that intern would need a separate one than the intern next to it. That's effectively how you should consider Clarity task servers. So that's the why, and the general guidance that we've gotten on the named user licensing side of things. But I will say that the rules do not apply 100% equally everywhere.
Cool. We've got some feedback of other people throwing in their experiences with Unified Sync and licensing and stuff like that. So we're getting some extra feedback and points of contact, but suffice it to say that the safe answer is what Matt has said, as opposed to, like he said, there seems to be some variances in experience. Okay. Is there a way to generate a list of all Revit files in BIM 360 ACC? Well, they say cloud, but let's take it at a project by project basis. They're organized within so many project folders that it's not quick to find them at all.
I mean, this is something that I don't think that I have an easy way of doing it, but you could get close to it in two ways. One, there is the, if you've got project executive role within BIM 360 ACC, there is the BIM 360 data extract task, which gives you either for the entire hub or account, or on a particular project, either way. It generates that data for you and puts it into CSV files, which can then be downloaded, and that I believe has the path to every single file in your hub or in your project. That's one way. If you're talking about Revit files and DWG files, then I would say, if you wanted to connect to the to the Clarity database, the one called Rand Revit, we've got a table because we do background caching of all the models in in your project. You can find a table in there called Skyscraper Project Models, and that has the path to every file that's either an RVT or a DWG inside of all of the BIM 360 or ACC projects.
Gotcha. Next one, is batch repathing Revit links something on the radar for future releases?
So we have a tool right now for, and I guess I'd be curious to know if this is file-based versus BIM 360. We have a tool in the IMAGINiT Revit utilities, which does batch repathing of links when it's file-based or when it's Revit server-based, I think. So we've done that in the past. I kind of feel like it's an interactive oriented task. Like you should scan, you should look at what the changes are going to be, you should confirm it and press go. And that's not really how Clarity operates. Clarity is more like set it and it runs in batch and you forget about it kind of thing. So I don't know if it feels like a good fit for us, but
mostly asking about ACC BIM 360.
ACC BIM 360. Well, I guess I'd be open to understanding what people are interested in from that perspective. So write in with more details. We do already do batch repathing as part of our BIM 360 migrate tools. We've got a task that'll migrate your models from one hub and project to another hub and project, and make them fully fully work shared and coordinated. And we do our best to repath the links when you get over there. So we're in that space already, but let us know exactly more about your scenario.
To give you a final hosanna, is there a place where people can look at either a future roadmap or, I'm adding this in on my own, put in their requests for features and capabilities to be added to Clarity?
Gotcha. I recommend. Thank you for the thing, Joe. But if inside of Clarity, in the upper right corner, you'll see feedback. That takes you to our IMAGINiT Help Race site for Clarity. This has all sorts of things. Lets community, publish ideas or problems that they're having or questions that they have. We make a lot of use of this to figure out which, of what to do in each release. You can vote up other people's ideas or your own. So I highly recommend this. Also, we do publish. Sometimes we'll be doing webinars to talk about a particular topic, either during a release or during a development cycle or towards the end of a development cycle. Like people on this, I think, saw the sneak peek of 2025, a month or two back, and still had time to get some feedback in. So I think start with this, imaginit.helprace.com site, and that's the easiest way to start getting feedback in there.
And with that, I will say again, for those that had their questions that didn't get answered, we will get back to you. But thank you very much for your time, everybody.